On today's podcast, we will be talking about online advocacy, and our guest is Vale. Vale is the network coordinator at the Women's Rights Program at the Association for Progressive Communications, or APC for short. Vale is a feminist, activist, and writer. Her interests are the intersection between internet rights, sexual and women's rights, and the transformative power of technology from a feminist perspective. Areas that are central to Vale's work include digital safety and the design of remote, interactive, and participatory spaces. Vale, welcome to the podcast. We are delighted to have you as our guest today. And now our listeners are really interested to hear more about you and your work. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Thankful that the internet gave us these chances, no? To sit in our homes.
Yeah, absolutely. My first question, Vale, is how is online advocacy different to more traditional advocacy? And in what way are they similar?
This is a very large question, no? There are no one answer. When we think about advocacy done with our bodies in physical spaces, it comes immediately the kind of borders that this entails. While the advocacy online seems to remove borders. It gives us this sense of ubiquity and being together in spaces. But it's also the internet divide us and fragment it, no? When we are on a square together, we are really truly together. Side by side. When we are in the internet, we feel we are together, but I'm in my little box, I'm in my little digital tunnel. I cannot see all the other people that are there. I would say the specificity is the possibility or this sense that we are in one unique space, that we bridge languages, no? And the advocacy can be global. So I would say it's probably the very same in what we would like to achieve, a change, a transformation, but it's very different in the way in which we need to learn those spaces, the technology, and all the invisible that is there and that can amplify or diminish our ability to influence.
Great, interesting. Is there then an advantage to using online advocacy?
Yes, especially considering now that we are in a year which is still under the pandemic. If you had asked me before, I would probably have a different answer. But I think that the internet, if we talk number-wise, masses-wise, it gave us this sense that we can be together. And somehow, with the global pandemic, the internet was the one and only space where we could advocate, because we had been forbidden to go in the street. For public health reasons, this powerful ability and possibility to make people feeling less alone, to making people feeling that they can find people that think as we think, or people that can help and are willing to help in their own diversity to achieve a common goal.
So what online platforms does Association for Progressive Communications typically use or recommend, and why?
The association itself is on few spaces, Facebook, Twitter, and we are also starting Instagram. But there is a lot of advocacy that you do, for example, in conversation, organizing an event or participating to event. It can be the one session or can be a more protracted intervention, where you talk with people. Let's say the so-called main square are the social media, because it's where you can reach and you can be more visible, or you can build a sort of traction. Then there are different other platforms or tools that you need to combine so that the complexity of the message it's also passed, no? Because otherwise, what is a tweet in a sea of tweets? And we also know that civil society traction can never compare with one tweet by Beyoncé, which will make far more conversation than many other tweets. So also how we interact with testimonial, with symbols in those spaces, people that whose voices or become also a point of attraction. Probably the main space and site during the years is Take Back the Tech. Take Back the Tech, it's an online permanent campaign And that was born originally in the 16 days of activism against violence against women. It's a campaign site, it's a space, it's also a point of interaction of the different community we have.
Vale, talking about Take Back the Tech, would you just develop a little bit about the emphasis on Take Back and how the campaign is working?
Take Back the Tech, it's a campaign against violence against women that wanted to focus on technology. So if we go back in time, it was the big explosion of social media, big networks, and also enthusiasm, no? Because Facebook, the Twitter, they really democratized the access. Before, you needed knowledge, means, and more. But this kind of tools with all their limitation had really opened up the space for many people, local activists, to find a new space. But how you use technology, what is technology, why technology matters. And so Take Back the Tech was talking from the very simple thing, how you inhabit a space, how you create a profile. But also if you are an activist, for example, a queer activist, a non-binary person, you habit this space in full disclosure of who you are. So what are the implications of privacy? How you can protect yourself? How you make sure that certain conversations happen in spaces and with people that you trust and they are not all over the place. And so Take Back the Tech had been always a campaign that had tried to give us some, if you want, tips or how to be safe or what does it mean from a feminist perspective, but also very open to local activism. We started really with the simplest thing around the technology. What is technology? Is technology being a political site also, no? Because Facebook, it's a political site. How you interact with Facebook? And is Facebook a space that will naturally support our advocacy messages? Or we need to be aware as activists and feminists, as we are aware that the world and the patriarchy is there. And so you also work on transforming the space. One of the most famous campaigns that we joined was about Facebook and the way in which they were using language or stopping or blocking activists. This interaction also with all these big technology corporations, in a way to hold them accountable. So all this is part of advocacy. So you advocate for your issue, that can be a health issue, a sexuality issue, but you also advocate around the technology, because the technology is not neutral, and it's really important that people own the technology, understanding how I can do my video. But maybe I don't want that people know where the video was developed or where from it was uploaded.
Could you explain that a bit and let us know the key online safety principles everyone should consider when doing advocacy online?
Technology has this habit of changing constantly. So I feel that whenever people embark on using technology, trying to have a sense that you are comfortable, no? Comfortable on what you share, comfortable on what is visible. You can learn all the current specificity of one platform, the Twitter or the Zoom, but then it will change. So I would say it's a learning curve, and it's a constant learning. And no one knows everything. So what is really important whenever we focus on digital safety is to go and to understand what is a risk. So where we want to go, what we want to create. Do we want to create noise? And how we want to create noise. Understanding the risk, what we feel we can cope with and what we don't, it's really important. So whenever you enter in an advocacy space, think, what do you want to achieve? And then think about who can try to stop you and what they can do. And then think about what are your boundaries? What can make you feel really hurted and wounded? Because there are risks that we can take and we don't perceive as risk. So spend more time to understand which space online can offer you a safer space and how. And sometimes maybe if it's not a global campaign, just think to do the old way, sit and come together. Or if we use email, the first line of digital security, it's your subject. You don't put, let's meet to do the revolution at 5 o'clock in the square.
Yeah.
You just put a general subject. So I think when we talk about digital safety, very simple. Privacy is not about secret. No, people say, I have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Well, I can say, yes, I have, but not meaning there are things that I do not want to share with everyone. And then it comes to really spending some time understanding the technology. You will have your own email or username, and then you will have a password.
Yeah.
So understanding that password, it's like the key of our flat, of our house, of our room. It is important that this key, it's really protected, and that we do all the necessary steps to make sure that this key is not in a position or in a place where anyone can have. So understanding password and making sure that your password is long and strong. I can use the best possible safer softwares, no? But if my password is 01235, not difficult to guess. Or is the name of my cat. It's not difficult to guess if you are online and you search a bit about me to find somewhere the name of my cat. So about digital safety is, first, password, login, it's really the key to whatever space you are going to be. So take care of your key.
What is the most successful online advocacy campaign that the Association for Progressive Communication has done? And why was it so successful?
In terms of general conversation, I think I would say that Take Back the Tech, the online campaign that was in general advocating about reclaiming technology and somehow fight back the violence that we are also suffering online and offline. That probably is one of the most successful because it brought a different perspective among activists. But also APC work a lot on policy advocacy. You cannot just use one tool or you cannot do advocacy in one space. I think the people need to understand that advocacy is really a process now where you combine. But I think that the process around understanding that online gender-based violence is a thing and that is not another invention of feminists. So bodies that are perceived as female or non-conforming are specifically attacked. And so how we respond, I would say this is probably one of the most important pieces of advocacy. And we have done online because we are an online organization. APC has no offices. The internet needs a political approach because it's not neutral. So a feminist intersectional approach can help in the Facebook, the internet itself. They need to be spaces that are friendly to everyone. Because if you cannot access the tool at the same level, then of course that your voices will be echoes. They will not be so strong as other voices. Feminist internet in its ability also to advocate with funders and donors to understand that technology is not a medium, but it's really one of the sides of our politics. I would say this probably for me, in terms of advocacy, had been the most important because it's something that goes beyond the specific one issue. It gives us the possibility to advocate about our own different issues.
What has been your biggest learnings when doing online advocacy? And what's your top tips for online advocacy for our listeners?
I think that we need a lot of patience and time because doing online advocacy, it's really consuming. It asks for a lot of preparation. So there is a lot of communication. And a communication where you really need to make sure that we understand each other. No? There are a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
So when we sit again in a physical space together, we can read our body languages.
Yeah.
And this can help us creating trust, but also, if you want, shortcutting some decision. But when everything is happening online, where you build online, it is in a local space or in a global space, you really need to consider time, the time for preparation. You need to consider also the kind of language that you use. We all are in our bubble. So one big learning we did doing an exploration on sexuality in South Asia. And we use all this world. We use, LGBT, or we use queer. But those languages and those words comes from a pattern. How people in Nepal, how people in India that sit in different languages, in different culture, what are their words, their sentences? Because advocacy cannot happen if the one sending the message and the one receiving are not having the same language. So, because all the assumptions need to be clarified. So I would say a lot of patience and understanding of time. But on the other side, also an excitement for the incredible creativity that you can use. Because online, the quantity of drawing, messaging, meme, GIF that you can produce to create attention, but also to reach out to your final target, it's immense. And it's more affordable than other kind of advocacy. Instagram was not meant to be a space of advocacy, but if you go now and browse in Instagram, you will see how much queer aesthetic is there, how much people talk about things, body proudness, I would say. And so I think online advocacy is about hacking. Hacking originally in the tech community was not a negative. Hackers are people that are curious and they test the system to find the vulnerability, but not to exploit so much as to highlight and then solve, to find and to move. But then, of course, in the mainstream, and this also comes from specific place like US and Western culture, hacking had been make negative. But if you think of hacking as understanding a space, understanding the vulnerability, and then move to a next layer to change, to transform, to make better, useful. And definitely in the WRP and APC, hacking it's a political practice. So for me, hacking, it's really the power of understanding and transforming. And anything can be hacked. My understanding of life had been hacked by the pandemic. And then you have to reinvent yourself. And how you reinvent yourself with the tools that you have, with the people that you have. So I think this is a personal, but also collective reclaiming. And then things can be used and shared and transformed. And for me, hacking has this power.
Do you think online advocacy in some way democratize access and help speed up in terms of achieving goals of a campaign, an advocacy campaign, for example?
I think that it depends from what is the purpose and the final goal. But in terms of building pressure, of creating an issue, of raising awareness, online advocacy, it's powerful. Because again, it gave people the possibility to connect with each other. It gives the possibility of people to build up the numbers. During the years, we have seen that decision makers were not so much under the influence of social media. Now they fear if something is trending, then they somehow reflect upon. We have a lot also to learn. How to make this power effective. For example, if you cannot go to Geneva face-to-face, and civil society will have challenges, especially the south of the world. In a world that now is getting vaccine, there is a first world that will get it easier. And the rest of the world, the majority of the world will not. This will impede the possibility to have face-to-face advocacy, will impede to be in these rooms. So we know that when rooms close, the one that will be out, it's the activists, not the decision maker. As APC, we work a lot with the Internet Governance Forum, but it's a non-decisional spaces, But there are places where decisions are taken. We now need to reinvent this new leg of the advocacy, how to be in those spaces where our advocacy need before was counting more on our bodies to be there. We had always used an online advocacy as an awareness raising, as a pressure, and then to open the conversation in small talk or in a different kind of spaces. But the government, there is a lot for us to learn and understand, because the doors usually are locked. Powers doesn't like to be transformed or to be shared. So I think that we cannot just have an easy yes, no, but we really need to understand how we can use technology or the power of so many people being willing to engage to unlock the door that remain, so ostensibly closed.
What resources have you found useful, and would you recommend to our listeners to help them develop their online skills?
There are many. I can suggest some of the resources we have as APC and the WRP, but just as a point of departure. Because as I said, it's really important that people then look for what they need, and what is their circle of trust. So I think the takebackthetech.net can be one space, but also the FTX website, which is ftx.apc.org, and it's in 4 languages so far. But they can be spaces for starting, because there are so many organizations now working, local collectives that produce material in their own languages, or look for a point of view in India, or look for activists, and they will bring you to the resources, because also resources evolve and change. Yeah. Now, go to the Erotics website, which is erotics.apc.org, because I have some APC resources, but also a lot of resources from our partners. It's a guide for remote working or how to inhabit these spaces, the online spaces, that we will be forced this year to continue this virtual or digital advocacy activism with something local, but not as much as we are used. But as a point of start, because as I said, there is so much incredible creative material that is just simply amazing.
Vale, thank you very much for joining us today for very, very interesting and insightful conversation and input. I'm sure our listener will learn a lot from your intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the possibility, because you learn while you talk. You also realize your holes.